Hey everyone, Itai Manero here, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to paint graphic illustrations using color gradients in Procreate. So let's jump right into it. In order to achieve this, I'm going to be using my new Graphic Madness brush set for Procreate. You can find it along with a free mini version for you to try out on my Gumroad page through the link in the top right corner of this video or in the description below. But first, let's have a look at everything the full set includes. Graphic Madness is a set that embraces the digital look of digital art. It contains 25 brushes for super clean and stylized line art, 30 different brushes that unlock the ability of painting color gradients in Procreate, 12 brushes for manually painting your own gradients, and 17 different textures and patterns that you can paint into your artworks, with built-in color gradients as well. It also includes a full guidebook in PDF format on how to use the brushes, and a special color palette that is the one I use for all the promotional images for this set. Now let's swatch some of the brushes and I'll explain how everything works. The first thing you'll notice when you open my brush set in the brushes menu in Procreate is that all the brushes are conveniently organized into categories. There's a category for line art brushes, another for stamp gradient brushes, another for paint gradient brushes, another for texture brushes, and another one for pattern brushes. Let's start with the line art brushes. You can see which brush I'm currently swatching by looking at this rectangle here. The main characteristic of these brushes for line work is that all of them are super clean and crisp. If you zoom in, you'll see that they don't have anti-aliasing, which means there are no transparent pixels at the edges of the brush strokes like with other brushes. This is great, because when you look at your lines while zoomed out, your brush strokes will appear extremely clean and graphic. Some brushes have pressure sensitivity, and others also work with barrel roll if you have an Apple Pencil Pro and a compatible iPad. Brushes that support barrel roll can be easily identified by the rotate symbol in their names. If you don't have an Apple Pencil Pro, don't worry, these brushes will still work great without the rotation feature. There are also some brushes that paint thinner or thicker lines, depending on your speed. And plenty of others that automatically draw wobbly lines without the need to apply different pressures with the stylus. These are pretty awesome and allow for highly artistic line styles. I've also included a couple of brushes for adding details, such as dots and inky splats. Next are the stamp gradient brushes. By selecting two different colors, one as the primary and the other as the secondary in the color wheel, these brushes will automatically create a smooth gradient, transitioning from one color to the other. You can easily control the gradient's direction by simply rotating your canvas with two fingers. However, if you have an Apple Pencil Pro, I've included an additional version of each of these brushes that utilizes the rotation feature, allowing you to adjust the gradient direction by simply rotating your stylus. There are 6 different categories of stamp gradient brushes, and each of them has 5 different levels of smoothness in their transitions. You can see the differences in these 5 brushes from the first category, called Horizon. Let me also show you one of these brushes with different color gradients, so you can really appreciate how beautiful these transitions are. By the way, all of these brushes work perfectly with the selection tool, meaning you can select an area on your canvas and apply a gradient only in that specific area. The remaining categories of stamp gradient brushes are called Radial, Mirror, Wave, Pyramid, and Stripes. Next we have the Paint gradient brushes. These are 12 beautiful brushes designed for manually painting your own gradients, with different levels of hardness or softness depending on the brush. Each brush comes in 2 versions, one that allows you to paint gradients from transparent to a color of your choice, and another that works with both the primary and secondary colors in the color wheel, letting you create gradients from one color to another simply by applying pressure with your Apple Pencil. Again, these brushes work amazingly well with the selection tool, so you can paint gradients with precision in just the areas you want. The last 2 categories of brushes are textures and patterns, and both of them work in a very similar way. Each brush comes in 2 versions, one that paints from transparent to a chosen color, and another that blends the primary and secondary colors in the color wheel when you apply pressure with your Apple Pencil. To give you a better idea, you can see me swatching all of these brushes here. Now that we've gone through all the brushes included in this set, let's create an artwork using them. For reference, I'm using an 8.5 by 8.5 inches canvas at 300 dpi, and I've chosen a cream color for the background, just to make it easier on the eyes while I work on my sketch. If you ever want to check which brush I'm using at any moment, keep an eye on this rectangle here. To start, I'm using the Flat plus Stroke Blending plus Pressure brush to sketch my idea. My illustration is going to be based on a few objects I have in my studio that I thought would look good together and create a nice composition: a lamp, a plant, and a decorative bird figurine. As you can see, I'm sketching my idea very roughly and not worrying too much about the details at this stage. Once my rough sketch is finished, I lower the opacity of the layer, and on multiple different layers below the sketch, I'm going to use the clean round brush. And I'm going to start making a separate shape for each element of my drawing. Keeping all these elements in separate layers will make things super easy later when the time comes to apply all the gradients and details. I'm making an effort to work with simple shapes, because my idea is to paint a very geometrical looking illustration. I think this kind of art style looks great and has a lot of possibilities. To help me achieve this geometrical style, I'm taking advantage of Procreate's built-in tools like QuickShape, which basically turns rough lines or shapes like curves or circles into perfect shapes when you hold your Apple Pencil. I also create a shape, duplicate it and move it for things like the hanging part of the lamp, or the cable around the top parts. Also, I'm not worrying too much about the colors I'm choosing for each shape. I just try to pick different colors that help with differentiate them from each other. For the plant, I'm doing a single leaf and duplicating it a few times to make a bunch of leaves. To paint the details inside the leaf, I create a layer on top and turn this layer into a clipping mask. This will make whatever I draw in this layer to be visible only inside the leaf. I then group these two layers and duplicate the group to make a second leaf. I can then duplicate these leaves as many times as I need to form the whole plant. To give the plant a bit more dimension, I'm doing a second type of leaves that I'm going to place behind the previous leaves, in a darker color scheme. Again, I just create one group of leaves, and I duplicate it as many times as I need. To complete the plant, I'm placing a new layer between the front and the back leaves, and in this layer I'm manually drawing the stems that hold all these leaves together. I then finish up any missing elements. Once all the elements in my illustration are blocked in, it's time to start rendering everything. I'm going to start by adding a nice gradient from blue to orange in the background. By the way, a reminder that this color palette I'm using is included with the brush set. I'm also adding a second gradient at the top part of the background by selecting the previous blue and a deep purple color and using the selection tool so that the gradient only applies to the top part without affecting the orange at the bottom. Using the brush called Gradient Stroke Pointillism, I'm going to paint the light around the bulb of the lamp with this creamy yellow. The Pointillism brush will give it a nice texture. I'm also going to add some texture to the background by painting a gradient with the noise brush using dark orange and dark purple for the primary and secondary colors, then lowering the opacity and setting the layer to multiply mode. Next, I'm going to render the different elements in the scene, starting with the bulb. I'm using the radial 60% stamp gradient to add a gradient from white to yellow. It's important to activate alpha lock in the layer so that the gradient only applies inside the shape of the chosen element. I then use the gradient stroke 100% softness brush to paint a little bit of darker orange at the bottom of the bulb. I use the same brush to paint a gradient from orange to yellow in the filament of the bulb. I switch back to the radial 60% brush to paint a gradient from dark purple to orange in the structure around the bulb to give the sense that it is being affected by the light source. And I do the same with the base of the bulb. Now I'm adding some detail to the base of the bulb with the gradient pattern lines brush, some touch-ups with the gradient strokes 100% softness brush, and also adding a few dots with the orbs 2 brush. Switching to the horizon 80% brush, I'm adding a gradient from orange to a mid purple at the top part of the lamp. And using the selection tool, I can isolate the front part of the same piece and add a gradient from orange to yellow to make it look like it is a tridimensional rectangular object. To give a hint at the fact that this piece of the lamp is made out of wood, I can use the gradient pattern waves brush to simulate some of that wooden texture, and it will fit nicely with the geometrical art style that I'm aiming for with this illustration. Next, I'm going to work on the bottom surface. To add a reflection of the light source, I'm adding a gradient from purple to red in an angle so that it follows the direction from the bulb. And then I'm adding the same gradient in the opposite side and filling the missing part in the middle. Then I'm using the selection tool to add gradients with a hard edge below the lamp and the feet of the bird. Using the rectangular option in the selection tool, I'm also adding some vertical reflections in the whole surface of the table, choosing orange for the closest part to the bulb and purple to the further side. The idea for the rest of the illustration is to follow the same process, basically activating alpha lock on each of the layers and applying gradients to the different elements, and also using the gradients in combination with the selection tool anytime I need to apply a gradient to a specific area without affecting parts that I don't want to. I also add a tiny bit of texture where I see fit. And add additional details, like the shadow of the leaves that is projecting on the pots. Since all the leaves are separated in groups in different layers, it is very easy to add depth to the plant as a whole by adding darker gradients in the leaves that are behind and lighter gradients in the leaves that are in front. And also even lighter and warmer gradients to the leaves that are closer to the light source. As for the little bird figurine, I want to embrace the geometrical style, and using the selection tool, I'm slowly building different planes that go from darker as they face away from the light, to warmer and lighter as they turn towards the light source. To add a few final details to this piece, I'm adding a few dots around the light, as if they were some kind of particles floating in the air. And to add some kind of graphic or design element to bring the piece together, I also add a line of colored circles in two different spots of the illustration. And this is the final result. I really hope you liked this video. If you use my brushes and post your art on social media, feel free to use the hashtag #ManeroBrushes and tag me so that I can see what you create. I will be extremely happy to share your creations with my audience. Don't forget to subscribe for more art-related videos and give me a thumbs up. Also, make sure to check out my Gumroad page, where you will find my Graphic Madness brush set for Procreate and many other sets and freebies that I have available. I'm sure something will suit your artistic needs. All the links are in the description below. Okay, thank you for watching. See you next time.